What up, Wizards? It's Dev, and Ziggy's down here too. We're from SPMTG. It's where the magic happens. And today, you might notice, I'm in the middle of the couch. If you know anything about the channel, and maybe you don't, I'm just glad that you're here either way. That usually means that we're going to have a little chat. We're going to have a little talk. And that's because there's just something I cannot get off my mind lately. Even with all the Modern Horizons 2 hype, and it is a really, really good looking set. And even with a standard set dropping like really soon, we're going to start spoiler season like super soon for the Dungeons and Dragons set, which is obviously super exciting. I still can't stop thinking about rotation of all things. But I keep asking different people, whether it's through a Twitter poll or through Patreon or through my Twitch streams, I keep asking how excited people are for rotation. And the answer I keep getting back is, by and large, very excited for rotation. So apparently a lot of people are thinking about this right now, and I'm not the only one. And I think it's time that we talked about that. Because it's kind of surreal to me, right? I've been playing Magic for like 26 years at this point. I'm a lifer. And I can't ever remember seeing a rotation. Not only that this many people were stoked on, but it's hard to remember a rotation that people were excited about, like, at all. That's because rotation's usually a bad thing. Or at least in a lot of people's minds, rotation's a bad thing. It's one of the reasons that most people cite for not playing standard Magic in the first place. They don't like the rotational aspect of it. And I understand that, but people that do play standard still have typical complaints about rotation, right? I'm going to lose all my cards that I paid so much money for. I'm going to lose this deck that I've been working on learning bit by bit for 6 months or whatever. And right, you form like a special bond in a way with some cards. You don't want to see them leave because you love playing them. And honestly, this time things are very different, and obviously so. So I think it's time we talk about why this is the most anticipated rotation of all time. All right, so I think that to get started here, there's a couple of things that are probably pretty obvious that I should go ahead and acknowledge. First and foremost, the fact that there's this huge thing that's been dominating certain aspects of how we collectively live our lives in the entire world over the whole last over a year, right? That definitely mattered. You know, a lot of people lost their jobs, left Magic because they just had other things to worry about, and that's completely understandable. Or maybe their LGS closed, almost certainly it did, and they couldn't play F&M or Saturday or Sunday Commander anymore, and that had a huge impact. I mean, people are still playing Arena. Obviously, Wizards is making all the money in the world, according to their financial statements. But I think it's still pretty obvious that a lot of people left paper Magic over the last year, and it's possible, and I think even probable, for some percentage of the community, that they're waiting on rotation to come back to the game. So there's that. I definitely think it's important to acknowledge that, because it's definitely part of why things are the way they are. And I think a lot of players are just waiting on the blank slate that rotation provides to get back into standard Magic, dip their toes, and see if maybe the next standard environment is enjoyable enough to actually invest in after all that we've been through. But again, I think that only really accounts for some parts of it. And obviously there are other things to focus on as to why this particular rotation has received so much hype even 6 months before it happens. Rotation, just to be clear here, doesn't happen until September. It's a while before we hit rotation, and yet so much rotation talk has already started to happen. It's started up at this point. And why is that? And it's not just because of what we've all been through over the last year. I think it also has a lot to do with the way Wizards has designed their product. Why do people want a blank slate before they start coming back to standard? And that's where we have to talk about stuff like Throne of Eldraine, which is what a lot of people, I think, in the comments section are going to say. So Throne of Eldraine is just such a powerful set. They made mistakes with Throne of Eldraine. They went over the line, and standard's just not enjoyable with a set like that in the mix. And I completely agree. That's 100%. I think, yeah, it's Throne of Eldraine dummy, as some people will probably say in the comments section. But I think it's way more than that. I mean, it's the bans too, right? And a lot of the bans came from Throne of Eldraine, but not all of them. I mean, we're in a set right now we're in a standard right now where let me try to do this. I have to try to do this as a content creator who follows Magic for a living. This is going to require effort. Oko got banned. Once Upon a Time, Fires of Invention, Agent of Treachery, Euro, Omnath. Anything else? Have I forgotten anything? Lucky Clover. Lucky Clover got banned as well. I almost forgot Clover. So, yeah, we're in a standard where a dude who's been playing Magic for 26 years, follows Magic literally for a living, and makes content, is in a position where he might forget something that's been banned over the last year. Because so many things have been banned. So it's no wonder that people are waiting again for a clean slate. They also nerfed Companion in the last year or so here. I mean, there's been so many fumbles and mistakes and bannings, and people are calling for more bans beyond the ones they've already made. I mean, it's been such a mess over the last year. We've seen messes in the last few years, right? I mean, we had to ban 3 different cards from the Energy Suite. We saw a turn 4 2-card infinite combo that wins the game with a bunch of haste 1/1s. That happened. Like, that slipped through design. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen oppressive sets. I feel like Kaladesh was an oppressive set the entire time it was in Standard, and stuff had to be banned out of it. Remember the Aetherworks Marvel fiasco? Like, I feel like in some ways one of the last rotations we just had when Kaladesh rotated out a couple of years ago, I feel like that was a very anticipated rotation, but nowhere near the level of this one. And that's because this rotation is a lot like that rotation, just with even more problems, even more banned cards, an even more broken set, and even more broken mechanics than the energy mechanic was. The adventure mechanic has caused Bone Crusher Giant and Brazen Borrower and Lovestruck Beast to be among the most played cards in Standard. It's not many decks you go against that play red in their deck, but they don't play Bone Crusher Giant. These cards go in just about everything. And there's Gruul Adventures, there's Teamer Adventures. Even when they ban Lucky Clover, like Teamer Adventures lives. Naya Adventures is a thing. It's actually a really important deck in the format right now. And that's because the adventure mechanic in specific is just so brokenly good, provides card advantage so well that it's hard to pass up. These creatures go in just about every deck, and I think we're getting a little bit sick of seeing them. There's also a bunch of cards from the sets currently in Standard that just completely dominate all Standard play for the last few months now, to the point where it's really difficult for a new set to really make an impact, of all the rotating cards we got going right now. It's like Sultai Yorion uses, obviously, Yorion. I cannot wait to see that guy go. I know a lot of people love Yorion. I'm not one of them. I am very sick of Yorion. But there's also obviously Emergent Ultimatum that's in that deck, Extinction Event, Shadow's Verdict, just all the really efficient removal in black that's going to rotate out. Heartless Act, Eliminate sees a lot of play in those decks. I cannot wait for Extinction Event to rotate out. I cannot wait until hopefully the only sweeper is like Doomscar. That would be nice. I hate that a lot of the removals exile based. That feels oppressive to a lot of aggro decks, but then again, there are a lot of aggro decks that have unbelievable pieces right now that, again, I'm getting a little sick of. How many times have we seen Fervent Champion, Robber of the Rich, into Anax, into Torbrand, Embercleave? I mean, that deck is going to lose a lot of pieces. And we're all really sick of Mono Red. We've been playing against that deck for what feels like forever at this point. Mono White actually gets to keep a fair amount of pieces, but they do lose all of the best cards in their deck, like the ones that make it a Bogle's deck, a deck it's hard to target their creatures. They lose Selfless Savior, they lose All Seed of Life's Bounty, they lose Seasoned Hallowblade, and good lord, I am so sick of playing against Seasoned Hallowblade at this point that I am going to be super happy to see that card go, and I once loved it so much. It goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? It used to be that you formed a bond with cards, and I'm sure that a lot of people have formed bonds with cards. I just got done saying a lot of people like Yorion, and are probably going to be sad to see that card go. But from what I can gauge from the community right now, I feel like there are decks that are ostensibly the best decks in the format for like the past 6 months. Sultai Yorion, your Mono Red, your Mono Whites, your rogues and stuff like that. But I don't know, like, anybody that loves these decks. I don't, even Esper Sultai Yorion players that I know at this point are bored with it. You turn 2 Wolf of Heaven, turn 3 Cultivate, maybe hold up some counter magic, play a Binding somewhere in there, and then I don't know, win the game with an Emergent Ultimatum, yawn, I guess maybe an Alrund's Epiphany in there somewhere to take an extra turn, and then an Emergent Ultimatum. It's the play patterns are so stale, even to the people playing these decks. I know a lot of people that play Emergent Ultimatum. I don't know a whole lot of people that really, truly enjoy the fact that they feel like they have to play Emergent Ultimatum to stay in Platinum or Mythic or whatever. So there's that. Even the, mono red and mono white play patterns are incredibly stale. At this point, rogues, nobody likes rogues. Even the people that play rogues don't seem to really enjoy doing it. God, and speaking of rogues, back to oppressive cards that leave the format, and I can totally understand why people are excited about rotation when you've got cards like Into the Story leaving the format, or Thieves Guild Enforcer, or Drown in the Loch, which will also leave the format. I mean, rogues is still technically a thing, and they've got Ruin Crab and Soaring Thought Thief and stuff, but they lose all of their best cards, and I know a lot of people are pretty hype about that, myself included. It just feels like we've been playing against busted decks, and not only busted, but boring to play against and with, if you can believe it, for a good long time now, since before the last rotation. Before the last rotation, we had Teferi Time Raveler and Wilderness Reclamation in the format. I mean, really frustrating cards in the format, So it just feels like for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been on seriously overpowered decks that, again, aren't necessarily that fun to engage with in either way. Which actually, and pay attention, because this is how you do a YouTube video, brings me to part 2, if we're doing this in part. Are we doing this in parts? Yeah, it's part 2. See, another reason, from what I can tell at least, let me know if I'm off base here, a lot of people I think are anticipating this rotation specifically, is because we get to see all these sweet cards in the last couple of sets that nonetheless don't really get to see a whole lot of play. They don't. I know that you want to do something with Burgy and Grinning Ignis and Go Infinite, and you want it to actually be good and fun and not just janky and slow and bad. And it's in all likelihood, there's a possibility that deck actually gets the pieces it needs, and after rotation, maybe it's a little bit easier to actually make that infinite combo work. Or maybe you want to play with Harness Infinity because it looks like a super sweet control finisher or something. Or maybe you want the Dina deck to be decent, but it probably won't be once Bastion of Remembrance rotates. But man, Dina looks like a sweet card, and it hasn't gotten the due that it deserves in this format so far. There's also, Semester's End, which might see a lot of play after Yorion leaves the format. We got all these sweet Planeswalkers in a format that's not really conducive to them, We can play more Professor Onyx or Kaya or Rowan and Will or whatever you want. And we got these things like Blood on the Snow and Vorinclex that work really well with them. For that matter, we got a bunch of sweet, tribal creature types, Maybe elves will work post-rotation especially. We get some cool elves in the Dungeons and Dragons set, which we should. Giants actually looks like a kind of playable mid-range tribal deck right now that's just barely not good enough, but maybe it will be after rotation. Maybe even Party is a playable deck. Party is a sweet mechanic, and again, maybe in the Dungeons and Dragons set, we get more Party subtypes. So there's a lot of stuff right now that's just waiting to be played, and I think everyone can see it. Elder Dragons, Glorious Protector, Drizzt Durden, I guess, is a good example. We saw this card previewed a couple of weeks ago, and I had this take. A couple of other content creators that I saw talk about it had this take. It looks like a card that would have been good in Standard 2, 3, maybe even 4 years ago, pre-Kaladesh. This looks like a playable card that would actually present a lot of issues, right? And it's just not the threat that it used to be. And I think a lot of people are seeing signals like this and some of the other cards that we've seen in the past couple of sets. Again, taking these kind of cards as signals that maybe we'll get back to a more traditional, more fair, less busted form of Standard Magic, where cards like this are actually good again. And I think that a lot of people hope those signals are happening because that's the kind of Standard Magic they want. So again, if those are the signals we're getting, if Standard does look more fair and enjoyable after rotation, I could understand why a lot of people would be waiting on rotation. God, I didn't even mention Cosima. Like, this is basically a cards waiting on rotation list here in the middle of the video, but I'm also going to give you a list of cards that I think are going to be the strongest after rotation, and it actually gives me some worry, and we'll talk about that as we go through. We're doing like a Star Wars naming convention on the title cards. Nobody told me about that. The first title card is not a Star Wars joke at all, so it's kind of weird to just start doing a Star Wars joke on title cards halfway through the video. Anyway, I guess we're stuck with it at this point. But yeah, there are some cards that are fairly frustrating to play against that are going to remain in Standard, and I think shape a lot of Standard Magic moving forward after rotation. No matter what we see in Dungeons and Dragons, the Forgotten Realms set, or what we see in the Innistrad set coming in September. Hey, did you know that? We're going back to Innistrad in September. Get hype about that. And maybe that's another reason people are hype about rotation. We get to go back to Innistrad. I'm down with that. But I still think there are some cards just in the last couple of sets that can have the potential to take over Standard in ways that maybe we don't like upon rotation, so maybe we'll talk about that for a second. Here is a list of cards you need to look out for, aka the strongest cards in the format post-rotation. This could be a whole video. I'm losing out on YouTube revenue, but anyway, here's the cards. Let's start with it. I got a list. It's on my phone. I'm sorry. Super professional, I know. But yeah, we still have good removal. Even though Heartless Act leaves the format, we get Power Word Kill, which is awesome. That's still a very efficient piece of removal. We still have Doomscar. I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, we lose Extinction Event, Shadow's Verdict, blah, blah, blah. But Doomscar is a really good sweeper. Like, it's a turn 3 sweeper, so look out for that when it's everywhere. Coma probably should go in this category. I don't have much more to say about it. It's really good to ramp into. We won't have Ultimatums. We won't have Ugin the Spirit Dragon. We will have Alwyn's Epiphany, but that's in the same color combination as this, so you know. Coma looks pretty good after rotation is all I'm saying, especially with no Extinction Event. No, there's less exile removal in the format, so Coma looks a little bit better. There's no Elspeth Conquers Death for what that's worth. You know what I'm getting at here. Less exile removal makes Coma a little bit better. There's also Solid Coming. We'll still have a premier counterspell in the format. Binding of the Old Gods. I think that's just going to be one of the best cards in the format, period, post-rotation. Asika's Chariot is going to be good. Toski, really good 4-drop post-rotation. Again, especially with the exit of a lot of exile-based removal. I think Tusky gets very good. Clarion Spirit, you're still going to be playing against that card for a while. As a matter of fact, a lot of mono-white stuff we're still going to be playing against. Luminarch Aspirin is... You might think it's rotating. For some reason, I thought it was rotating. It's not. It's in Zendikar Rising, so it's sticking around. Elite Spellbinder, Skyclave Apparition, Maul of the Skyclaves, Blade Historian. So, it's entirely possible. Mono-white is still a deck post-rotation, but it's going to be fair. It's going to be more fair because it doesn't have creatures you just can never remove. Wizards don't reprint like a Selfless Savior and All Seed of Life's Bounty. Don't do it. Don't. It's annoying. Aside from that, Ruin Crab, Soaring Thought Thief, we've already talked about that. Rogues could still be a thing. Aggro in general could still be a thing because Faceless Haven is still in the format, and Faceless Haven is a very good card. Valky and Tybalt, very powerful post-rotation, already powerful now. Showdown of the Skalds is something that we're going to have to worry about. Goldspan Dragon, right, is going to be one of the most important cards. I would imagine, almost, again, no matter what happens in these next couple of sets, I think Goldspan Dragon is going to be a very powerful card. And then maybe the most powerful card in the format post-rotation, Alrund's Epiphany, will still be around. A lot of decks are going to be playing this card, so keep that in mind. And I guess I haven't mentioned Scoot Swarm either. Scoot Swarm is still around post-rotation. It's not doing much now, but it might one day. I mostly bring up Scoot Swarm for the memes, but also I have an impending sense of dread about Scoot Swarm in the format. With far fewer sweepers, far less efficient removal overall. Scoot Swarm. But anyway, I think, seriously though, Alrund's Epiphany. I think we're all going to get a little bit sick of Alrund's Epiphany, if we're not already. Remember, that card's still in the format for a year and a half, so that'll be it's so fun, super fun. All that said, though, I know it sounds like the last segment of this video I'm kind of saying that I'm not excited for rotation because all these cards are still so oppressive and dominant, but it's going to be terrible. And I'm not really saying the sky's falling or like giving you a dire warning. It's not really that. I'm just going to be realistic. Like, these are the cards you need to look out for. But I'm honestly, even if I kind of hate playing against Clarion Spirit and there's not going to be a Bone Crusher Giant to kill it anymore, I'll take that trade because there's no Bone Crusher Giant anymore. If you play a lot of Arena, I think that's another reason why we anticipate this rotation so much is, I've said this before, but I may have played more Magic in the last 2.5 years on Arena than I did in the first 23 years of playing Magic, because I'd play Magic a few times a week. I'd get together with my play group twice a week and play a few hours of Magic. I'd go to F&M and play Magic. I would play a game of Commander every now and again. I would draft every now and again. But it's only a few hours a week playing Magic, whereas now I play Magic a few hours a day on average. And that will stale a format very quickly too, and I probably should have put that in the obvious stuff we talked about at the beginning of the beginning of the video. So I think that that's a huge reason too. A lot of us just play so much Magic that play patterns stale really quickly. So again, makes perfect sense that this is for once an anticipated rotation, but you gotta wonder, especially if Arena stays popular, you gotta wonder if this is the new normal. For my entire Magic quote-unquote career, it's such a weird word to use, but the whole time I've been playing Magic, everyone hates rotation for so many pretty obvious reasons, that they've voiced a million times. You hear the same thing every time rotation comes around. But with the way things currently are, if Wizards keeps making busted sets, if Arena continues to be as popular as it is, if people don't come back to paper Magic in the numbers that Wizards needs to cultivate a good paper Magic scene, then I could see rotation continuing to be something that's celebrated. And I kind of like that idea, but I don't like how we get there. Either way, I guess I'm just happy that more people than just me are excited for rotation this time around. That never happens. But again, I hate how we got there. Wizards printing busted card after busted card that leads to oppressive, frustrating decks that dominate a format for so long and in such a way that whole sets come out that just don't matter. Strixhaven doesn't matter. Kaldheim barely mattered because some of the cards they've already printed are just so good. So again, I hate the way we got here, but I am happy that more people are excited about rotation. I guess I made this video not only talk about why I'm excited for it, but why I think other people are, and also to say that this isn't usually a thing. In case you haven't been playing Magic for too long or you have like a standard amnesia, it's not common for people to anticipate or be hype about a rotation. The other day on Twitter, I sort of said this at the beginning of the video, but I just want to really give you what these results were. I asked everyone on Twitter the other day, are you excited for rotation? Simple question. 75%, 3 out of 4 people said, yes, I'm excited for rotation. Some percent of respondents said that it's complicated, which means that on some level they are excited for rotation. And usually the results would be flipped, You'd have like 75% of people saying, no, I don't like rotation. I'm scared of it. So it's just, again, a bit surreal to a longtime Magic player to see so many people so happy about what's on the horizon, because usually people aren't. Aside from that, just let me know how you felt about all this that I said in this video. Was I way off base on some of my stuff? Did I just miss entire points, the things that are going on in the community or the world at large that I just didn't put in the video? Let me know down there. I'm really interested in your takes on this particular subject. And again, I hope I didn't waste too much of your time with this one. People seem to really like this kind of content, the blog post stuff. And I kind of like to just kind of sit on the couch, no pressure, and just kind of tell you how I feel about stuff sometimes. It's fun for me too. So let me know if you enjoy this kind of content by hitting the like button or just telling me in the comments section. But again, the comments section this time, I want you to let me know what I missed, if I was off base on some stuff. Just, again, really interested in your point of view on this. But aside from that, do all the YouTube stuff, like the video, subscribe if you haven't done it yet, and hit the bell for the notifications. Seems like hitting the bell or hitting the subscribe button should just do that, but you also have to hit the bell. I don't know why. Aside from that, if you want to see me play Magic, you can do that at twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. Follow me on Twitter for stuff at SBMTGDev. So almost the exact same name. And if you want to, you can donate to us on Patreon to help support the channel. $1 a month to vote on what content we do. That's why I'm sitting in the middle of the couch today. It's because the patrons overwhelmingly voted for this video. Again, people seem to like this kind of content. I don't know why, but I enjoy making it. So I don't know why anybody would want to hear my opinion on just about anything. But I'm glad that you seem to enjoy that. So if you want to go over to the Patreon, get in on it, link in the description to all that stuff. But aside from that, I guess I'm done for this one. So, again, just let me know how you felt. And we'll have videos again soon. Next video is going to be the top 10 Modern Horizons 2 cards. Actually, really very excited to do that video. It's going to be the next couple of days. And, of course, we will be streaming in between there. So, follow me over there on the Twitch, and I will catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.